In this video, I will draw and shade a cross in 2 different ways. For this video, I'm using some drawing paper, and I have with me some geometric solids. I have a rectangular prism and a cylinder, and I will be doing a cross that uses each of these shapes. I'm going to start off with the rectangular prism, and that will mean that all of my sides will be straight, so I'm going to use a ruler. I'm also using a regular number 2 pencil and a blending stick, a sharpie, and an eraser. I'm starting off with the long lines of the cross, the upright lines. I want to try to make them parallel to each other. This will be the front face of the cross. Then I'm going to do the horizontal lines and try to make them perpendicular to the parallel lines that I just drew, but making them about parallel to each other and about the same distance apart. Now I'm just going to draw in the edges, and then I'm going to trace them with my Sharpie so you can see them a little bit better. If you want to use your ruler for the tracing, you can do that as well, but I'm comfortable just tracing my lines. I'm going to go ahead and just do the outline of the cross. Notice on this one, I'm not doing the lines that overlap. I'm also going to add some kind of rocky ground underneath the cross, since the cross was up on a mountain, Mount Calvary. Now, I wanted to show you with a pencil how I make this look like a form, like a rectangular prism. I'm starting off with diagonal lines, and they all need to be parallel to each other, so they all need to be the same direction. And I'm going to do that from every corner. They all should be the same length as well. Now, the diagonal lines that go behind the cross can be dashed. I'm just showing you those so that you kind of see that there would be some there. And then the ones that are outside of the cross can be solid. So those would be all the diagonal lines from every point of the cross. Dashed lines on the inside and solid lines on the outside. Now I'm going to trace just the solid lines, not the dashed lines, with my Sharpie. So you can see the ones that are outside of the cross and where they would go. All of the dashed ones will be hidden, so I am not going to trace those. Now I would connect the lines with vertical lines, trying to make them straight up and down. And notice that they stop when they hit something else, so they don't actually go all the way to where those dashed lines would be. And then I'm also going to connect them with horizontal lines. And there you have what looks like a 3D cross. Now I want to blend and shade the cross. I'm going to use just a regular number 2 pencil, but if you have other pencils that you prefer, feel free to use those. I'm just coloring lightly on the front face of the cross with my number 2 pencil. And then I'm going to push a little bit harder on the sides and the bottom edges of the cross so that there is a change in value. I want the face of the cross to be a lighter value and the sides and the bottom of the cross to be a darker value. This will give the illusion of depth. Now I'm going to take my blending stick, and sometimes I like to hold it like this so I use more of the side of the stick instead of the tip, and I try to work in small circular motions to blend the face of the cross so that ideally we get rid of most of those lines that the pencil made when we first started shading. I'm going to blend. If you wanted to get really fancy, you could go back with your pencil after this step and add like wood grain lines to the parts of your cross as well. So I'm just pushing a little harder underneath, trying to really get those areas blended smoothly to get rid of the pencil lines and to make a nice smooth blended area. Now for the bottom rocky area, I'm just going to add a couple of random markings with my pencil just to show kind of some different areas of rock. Maybe some would be highlighted or shadowed. You could definitely get fancier with this, but I mostly just wanted to keep it about the cross. So I'm trying to keep this area fairly simple, and then I'm going in and shading with my blending stick just to show that there's some variation in the ground here. Nothing too fancy. And there you have the first kind of cross. Now, that was my rectangular prism. Now I'm going to show you a cross with a cylinder. Now, when working with a cylinder, you have to pay attention to the angle that you're looking. If you're looking from the top of the cylinder, you see more of the circle on the top. If you're looking at from the bottom, the top is just a rounded edge. So when we think of a cross, we would be looking up at the cross. So the top of the cross actually needs to be rounded. I'm going to start with an oval at the top and bottom of where I want my cross to be. So it's pretty much centered on the page, and I'll use my ruler to connect the outside edges of these ovals. It's more like an ellipse actually. They're pretty flattened. And then I'm going to darken the top edge because that is the part of the oval we'll be using when we draw the cross. I'm going to do the same thing for the sides of the cross or the crossbar. I'm going to make ovals where I want them to start and stop. And I'm going to connect those with a ruler that goes across to each edge. And now I have my main cross shape. If you want to, you can erase the center lines. Now I'm going to trace my shape with Sharpie so that you can see it better. I'm also going to decide which of the ovals or the ellipses I am going to use. So the fact that I did the entire one on my right side means I cannot do that on my left. That would not make sense. And the bottom one is actually going to be into the rocky ground, so I don't need to worry about that one at all. But if I was going to draw that, I would need to do the entire oval. Now the left one, I only need to do the rounded outside edge so that it makes sense with the right side. I also think I'm going to go ahead and have this crossbar overlap the vertical bar. So the horizontal one is on top of the vertical one. And I will show that with shading. Now to shade a cylinder, I'm going to just make one side a little bit darker than the other side. So I'm pushing a lot harder on my left side, and I'm going to have it get lighter as it gets to the right. Now you could also have it darker on the outside edges and lighter in the middle. That would be another way to shade. I'm going to use my blending stick by trying to blend in the edges. I always try to hold my blending stick at a pretty good angle so that I'm never pushing on the tip of the stick. That'll make them last a lot longer. And then I also want to add a little bit of extra shading right under where my cross parts meet. And notice that I curve the line a little bit to make it look like a cylinder. For the crossbar, instead of doing left to right, I'm going to do bottom to top. So the bottom will be darker and the top will be lighter. I'm going to blend those, as you can see. And I'm going to leave this right side pretty light because that's where the light is coming from. Again, you can add a couple of colors or lines to the bottom just to indicate that there's some interesting stuff going on down there. I'm not getting too fancy with my rocky ground. And now we have a cross. If you wanted to get fancier with this one, you could add wood grain or maybe some type of nail or bolt or rope to keep those two beams together. So there are the two different crosses, a rectangular prism cross and a cylinder cross. Thanks for watching.